Welcome to the TFO podcast, where guests get to give their thoughts, feelings, and opinions on a variety of subjects. This podcast is hosted by your very own Stacy Cook, and as always, sponsored by Fool's Guide Life Coaching. Follow me on all social media platforms. So give it up for our guest today. State of Iowa and the Midwest as a whole is a lot about amateur wrestling.
Oh yeah.
So do you get a lot of flack from the people, that you're around that you did pro wrestling and not, and I don't know your amateur background, but that's what I think you and I have had that discussion before, and that's why I would bring it up, that do you get a lot of flack from people about not doing amateur wrestling? Or
No, I think people do. I'm sure there are some amateur wrestlers that are kind of like, people talk. The guy that's the coach here at the junior high, Jesse Reynolds. I know him, and we graduated high school. He's an excellent amateur wrestler. He says, "Oh yeah, Juan. Every year there's some kid that shows up to wrestling and says, 'Hey, where are the ropes at?'" He just laughs about it, and he's like, "Oh, there's no ropes here. Start doing your drills. Let's see if you like this." But no, in the old days, amateur wrestling and pro wrestling were a little bit more combined, because a lot of those amateur wrestlers, they couldn't make a living when they finished, they went to college.
What do you do, right?
What do you do after that, right? This was before MMA. So pro wrestling always had a healthy amount of amateur wrestlers, and they were always like welcome to the sport. They were always in great shape, great athletes, tough guys. And again, they were generous with their information of, hey, this is how you defend yourself, this is how you do these kind of moves and stuff like that. Because a lot of the really legit, what we called shooters in wrestling, the guys who were the real tough guys, were more often than not amateur wrestlers.
Yeah.
The Rock's grandfather, his Samoan grandfather, was not an amateur wrestler, but was known as one of those really tough guys. Yeah. So
the shooters.
He was just he was just this big, tough Samoan guy, and he got into a fight with a British shooter, a British great grappler, amateur wrestler who'd been notorious for, you don't want to mess with this guy, Billy Robinson. And he got into a fight in Japan with the Rock's grandfather, Peter Maivia. They were just knock out, drag out. They went through windows and stuff like that. And finally, that Billy Robinson hooked up that big Samoan, Peter Maivia, that 300-pound Samoan, and the Samoan hit him in the nose.
Wow.
And then they kept going at it. So there's always these great stories from that amateur wrestlers and the shooters and people like that. And so, I've never gotten too much flack. And I have a lot of respect for amateur wrestling. The conditioning those guys do is the hardest practices, that you'll ever find at the high school level. So,
what do you think about some of the guys that have left the pro wrestling and ventured into MMA?
I see a little bit. There was a guy when I started up I had my first match in Iowa in Cedar Rapids. I think it was the third match I ever had in my life. And there was a guy in our locker room who was training to be a pro wrestler and had a couple matches. And he told me, he's like, I'm more interested in MMA, and it's becoming a thing. And he ended up fighting in the opening fight of the UFC.
Oh, wow.
But he was a really good amateur wrestler, so he had that background. I think that's a big thing. I mean, like CM Punk didn't have much success with UFC, but he didn't have an amateur background in wrestling. Brock Lesnar was a stellar amateur wrestler, and so he did really well.
Much better.
Yeah, and a great freak athlete. That's the thing about our sport. Again, a lot of times our sport doesn't get the respect as, hey, there's always been tough guys in pro wrestling. Being a great athlete helps in professional wrestling, but it's not necessary.
Yes.
It's not a requirement to be a great athlete. It never hurts to be a great athlete. But if you're a great showman, see, pro wrestling is really three things. Charisma is one thing, but can you talk?
Yep.
Can you wrestle in the ring? How's your wrestling in the ring? How's your look? So Jimmy Snuka made a ton of money and was a big star in pro wrestling. Same with Bill Goldberg. Neither of them could talk. So here's the three things the three most important things. They didn't have one of them at all. And yet they were huge stars because of their charisma, their body.
The look and the charisma.
The charisma.
Yeah.
And when he got in the ring and wrestled, he had those cool moves. And he was an amazing athlete. But you'd see, even today, if you saw Jimmy Snuka, you'd be like,
holy smokes.
What is that? Who is that? So, but those are the three things that you really need along with charisma. Is, hey, can you talk? What do you look like, including your body, gear? Do you look like a star? And then, can you wrestle? Because Hulk Hogan was a good wrestler. Ric Flair was a way better pro wrestler, performer in the ring, you know. It's important, but some guys are really great pro wrestlers, but they ain't got no personality, they ain't got no look, no charisma, and some of them can't talk. But Punk can talk and Punk can wrestle, and he's got some charisma. So, but in the UFC, he struggled.
Yeah, I hear that.
But hey, at least he got in there.
Yeah, no doubt. So since we're talking about the look, right in front of you have two of your masks.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about those?
Yeah, I was wrestling in Boone, Iowa, about the time I had turned 40, and I was still doing my bad guy gimmick. So I had become a bad guy when I was in my early 30s, and I enjoyed it. I was a heel, as they say in pro wrestling, and I would go out with my Mexican flag, and I would wave it, and I would get on the microphone, and I would tell the people, you know, something in Spanish, and then I'd say, oh, I forgot, you guys can only speak one language. Unlike me, I can speak two languages, you know?
And then you got the boo.
Yeah, the boo, boo, boo. And I'd say, oh, you redneck farmers that are out there, you know, you guys used to work hard. You guys used to do all the physical labor, but now look at you now. You're all really heavy. You don't do any manual labor. You don't do any work. Who's out there doing the work? My people. The Mexican people. Yeah, that's right. Boo, boo, boo. They're chanting USA, USA, and I'm waving the Mexican flag. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And then I become a father. And then I get older. And I'm out in Boone, Iowa, and I'm doing the same old stick, Mexican flag. And they're chanting USA, USA, USA. Everyone's having a good time at the county fair in Boone, Iowa. And when you're wrestling, it's just something you begin to develop as a performer. You do the same thing when you're in a band. You're looking at the audience. You're listening.
Yes.
You're sitting there, you might be doing all these moves, but the whole time you're listening.
Exactly.
Watching. And they're chanting USA, USA. And I look out in the audience, and there's a family of four, a Hispanic family. A mom and a dad and their two kids. And surrounded by people booing me, chanting USA. And I'm feeling bad. Because you can tell they're kind of like, this is awkward.
Yeah, right. We don't know this guy.
Yeah. They're like, we just wanted to come to the fair and have a good time and eat some corn dogs or something, right? We heard there was wrestling here. And I felt bad because it was awkward for them, right? And I'm like, man, you know, I'm still loving wrestling. I still like to wrestle. I'm still in shape. These guys are getting younger and younger. My face is looking older and older. I still want to wrestle. I'm proud of being Mexican. I'm proud of being Hispanic. I need to be a good guy. What do I need to do? And I was like, I need to become a luchador because that solves all the problems.
Yep.
And so I decided to create the lucha character of Latin Thunder. And I was trying to tell promoters and some of my friends what I had in mind. And they're like, that doesn't make any sense, Juan. I don't know if it's going to work. They're like, are you just going to put on a mask? I'm like, no, I'm going to create my own mask, and I'm going to have my own character, and I'm going to have a cape, and, you know, it's going to look good. And they're like most things, you know, you can kind of give surveys, you can talk to people and say, this is what I got in mind. Until they see it, they don't really know it. You know, Henry Ford, I think, was the one that said if we'd asked them what they wanted, they would have said, we want faster horses.
Yeah, exactly.
If you ask them, hey, what do you guys want? Let's do a survey. Well, we want faster horses. And Steve Jobs says that, you know, people love their crackberry. They love that BlackBerry.
That's fast.
And they said, oh, you know, we're thinking of making a phone without any buttons on. I love my keypad.
That's right.
I love my buttons. He's like, no, as soon as you put that phone in your hand, what did you think? Do you want a keypad or button? No, this is great.
This is better, right?
You want faster horses? No, I like this, right? So I had to put it in front of them. I had to create it. I had to invest some money and time into it. And once they saw it, hey, this is kind of good. And you know what? There's no one else in the Midwest doing this. And hey, you know what? You're Hispanic, so it's kind of easy for you to do. And you speak English and Spanish, and you can sell more merchandise that way. And now, instead of going out there as this Mexican guy and having people boo you, you're showing a beautiful piece of your culture, and people are cheering it. Kids love it. At the same county fair.
Same fair. Come back next time. You got to the basket. They're like, hey, that's it.
And it covers the face, which was getting older. Because no matter what, you look old. Your face looks old.
We're going to get old. That's just life.
And those opponents, they all stayed in their 20s. So it solved a lot of problems. The mask makes you ageless, makes you more of a superhero. So it was the beginning of 9.5 years was probably the favorite part of my independent wrestling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Any regrets?
I wrote a whole book about regrets.
Me too. Isn't that something? I think we both did.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
tons of regrets. Yeah, I regret I didn't work hard enough. I had a real big choice. So the Black and Brave Wrestling School is in Davenport, Iowa. Seth Rollins, who was a backyard wrestler from Buffalo, I met him when he was a skinny, pimply-faced kid.
Okay.
Next thing I know, he becomes a big star in independent wrestling, and I'm like, geez, you know, you're a 6'2" kid, you look great, you're a great athlete, you know, I think you got a big future, so does everybody else. Now he's Seth Rollins, he's wrestling Brock Lesnar at Met Stadium, he wrestles John Cena at the Royal Rumble.
Wow.
He's celebrating 10 years as a WWE wrestler. Making millions, living the life, good for him. He had opened up a wrestling school. So seeing those kids go through that has been a really cool experience, and seeing those kids chase that dream, follow that journey, it just makes you reflect on yours.
Right.
And one of the things is I just didn't work hard enough. Another thing is there's kids that move from all over the world. There's kids from Alaska that said, hey, I'm going to move to Davenport because this is where it's at. And people that have moved from Florida, all over the place, right? And when I went to wrestling school in Dallas, Texas, that's where the school was at. That's where the sportatorium was at. I should have moved there and networked and been there setting up the ring, picking the guys up from the airport, just doing everything I needed to do to learn. I didn't do that. Instead, I was afraid of the big city, and I lived near Austin in a small town, a lot like Muscatine.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't seem to make that big move to immerse myself in it. And then even when I came here and I got hired to plant, that was the moment I got hired here, I knew, hey.
You can only do one of these, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
you know, and I tell the kids at the wrestling school, you know, hey, they have jobs, they work at Jimmy John's, they work at Walmart, and then they wrestle on the weekend, and they wrestle every chance they get. And I'm like, you guys are doing it right, you're doing the right thing. You have nothing to lose. If you quitting Jimmy John's isn't a life decision, right?
Exactly.
You got nothing to lose.
Right.
You get hired here, you walk into the Holiday Inn and 1,100 people are applying for the job. You're one of 100 to get interviewed, you're one of 22 to get hired. What's the chances of that happening anytime you want it to, right? So I had something to lose, and I knew at that point that I was probably never gonna leave this job and truly pursue the craft and the dream of pro wrestling. So I started a little bit late, I didn't go all in, and I never put myself in a position where I could get to work. You know, we always have to, you have to go somewhere and find a place I can get to work with people better than me, and have mentors, and just give it years, a decade of your life.
Yeah. I could see wrestling, I mean, I know you're a one person, but
Yeah.
I could see where when you go to do these things, there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
It is.
And 10 years seems like I could do it in that amount of time, but who knows, right?
Well, and I think when I see the young kids at the Black and Brave, it's like they don't even realize that they're starting a 10-year journey.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and that's the beauty of youth. And every person that finishes the camp and is still there 2 years later, developing a good routine. So that's a favorite quote of mine, is a routine in a man, nowadays, man and woman, is a sign of ambition.
Yes.
So what's your routine? And these kids, I've seen these smart young kids, they're not married and they don't have any kids, and they all got their high school diploma. So now they have some options.
Right.
And they can make a little money wrestling, they got their part-time job, and they develop a nice routine, the smart ones. They finish the camp. That's my thing too. I thought, well, as soon as I finish the camp, then as soon as I get that first match, no, it's a marathon. And these kids realize that, okay, I had another gig, I had another show, big deal. Now I'm gearing for the next show. And my workouts are this days a week, and then I do my shows this days a week, and then I do my social media this time. And then every time I make a little money, I'm buying another mask, I'm buying another set of gear. I'm working on my merchandise. I wish I would have been able to make a living at it for a year or two to at least do that. But I was always trying to negotiate the price. Like, well, the price is this. You got to move to Missouri to go train with Harley Race. The former NWA world champion has opened up a wrestling school in Eldon, Missouri. That's 5 hours from me, Juan.
Yeah.
Man, I got a job here. Maybe I'll train there on the weekends. Well, Harley's not really there on the weekends. You know, I was always negotiating the price. And the truth was, if you really want to do it, you got to go all in. And even then, you're not giving your dream. If you're a musician, it's not a 40-hour week.
No.
60 or 7-hour week, you know? And I heard a great chapter in a book. A guy said, who loves golf more, the amateur or the professional? And he's like, I like golf. He said, so I assume, well, the amateur loves it more. And I'm reading it thinking, well, yeah, I'm an amateur pro wrestler. I wrestle on the weekends. I wrestle even if I don't get paid a lot. I love it. Right? I would do it almost for free. That means I love it more. And he says, no, the professional loves the game more. And I began to pay attention to the people who made it in pro wrestling on my journey. There's CM Punk out of Chicago, Colt Cabana, the Seth Rollins, the people who I did see who started with me and I saw make it to the show, they all loved the game more than I did. I had never met anybody who loved pro wrestling more than Juan Forneau. In my hometown, there was no one. Town of 25,000 loved it more than me. But I started to realize I was in some locker rooms where Seth Rollins loves the game more than I do. And he said in that book, the professional loves the game more. Why? He makes it his profession. Because the only way, because that profession, whether it's musician, that grind is so demanding, you have to make it your job and your hobby.
Both.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. You talk about, to me, I think you have like 3 stages of the day that you're in.
Yeah.
And some of it is, what's your purpose? What's your passion? And then you recharge.
Yeah.
Purpose, passion, recharge. Sometimes your purpose might be your job. I need that to make money, but it doesn't charge you. It drains you. Right? So that takes, when I can go and find my passion, I can charge doing that because I love that. But if every day I'm at, try to charge, drain, come back up a little bit, have to charge, drain, come back up a little bit, that's different than charge. Because I love my job. It's my hobby. And now I just got to charge up in my sleep, but I'm already geeked. I can't wait till tomorrow because I'm going to get back out there and do that thing that I love. Again, I love my purpose.
You can do it 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, 6.5 days a week. You need very little time off from it. And meanwhile, I'm devoting 10 hours a month, maybe.
Because you have a purpose that you might not love, but it serves a purpose. It's a job, it's money, it's security, it's everything. It's security not just for you, but for your family. It's everything that you need, but it's not the passion that you have. So I mean, it's a different thing.
But when you're
the same, right?
It's the same, being a comedian, all those, but I think when you're in your 20s, I know I wasn't smart enough to think that way. I didn't understand the choices I was making, where it was like, hey, do you want to be a wrestler? Then you need to live in Dallas. Hey, do you want to be a wrestler? Then you need to do that. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's difficult. But I never put myself in a position to get to work. And when I see the kids at the Black and Brave, they're doing all these things that are right. They've been doing it for 3 years, and they know, I'm 3 years in, I've got talent, I'm good, and I'm still I'm not at the show yet, but at least they know, hey, I'm working hard, I'm giving it everything I got. I also see, it's interesting to see those people, because you mentioned regrets. Like I said, we wrote books on them, right?
Yeah, for
I'm 49 years old. Do I got regrets? But of course, it's a young man's sport, and I just gave it up recently, so that shows you how tough it is. But seeing the Black and Brave Wrestling School, 15 people start out, maybe 5 or 6 graduate after 3 months. Out of those 5 that graduate, there might be at the end of the year 3 or 4 guys or girls who stick around and have some talent. It's amazing for me to see the people who finish the camp, stick around for a year or 2, they're working out. It's a beautiful CrossFit gym. It's got a WWE ring. It's a great place to work on your craft. And after they graduate the wrestling school, they can go there for free. It's open 6 days a week. They're working on their moves. They're working out hard in the gym. They got trained by one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time, and they're not that good. They don't have that much talent. Holy cow, you mean to tell me I had some talent? Holy shit. Look at these kids. I'm 49 years old, and I'm better than them. Like, it's not even close.
Right.
This kid's been working out in the weight room, pumping iron, and he don't even have 15-inch arms. His genetics don't allow him to build muscle. I went into the weight room and boom, boom, boom.
Next thing you know, jacked.
I'm blowed up.
Yep.
It was a gift.
Yep.
Oh, I love pro wrestling. I've watched it ever since I was a kid. I had an aptitude for it. Some of these kids, they've been training for 3 months and they've been wrestling for 6 months and they're still kind of clumsy. They're not that athletic. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some super talented people I've seen come out of that, but it was a rude awakening to me, and that pain of regret of, I had some talent. And I remember reading a quote from Quincy Jones. Someone asked him a question about, well, what happens when someone doesn't work on their craft of being a musician or that? Well, then you're just disrespecting God's talent, your gift.
Yeah.
He says, and I did not respect the talent I was given. I did not work as hard as I should have on my craft. And that's something I have to live with for the rest of my life.